I came to the holiday gathering with my kids. My father raised an eyebrow and said, "Did no one tell you this was for family?" My kid looked at me confused. I said, "Let's go." We left without another word. And exactly 1 hour later he regretted every syllable. "Did no one tell you this was for family?" That's the first thing he said when we walked in. Loud. Direct. No room for confusion. He looked at my kids when he said it. Not me. Not the pie I was holding. Not the little gift bag my son had made for him with a handwritten tag that said to Grandpa. Just stared at my kids like they were strangers who'd wandered in off the street. I froze. My son turned and looked at me. He didn't understand what just happened. My daughter, only 6, kept holding my hand, but I felt her grip tighten. I said, "Let's go." So, I didn't argue. I didn't ask for an explanation. I turned around and we walked out the same way we came in. No one followed us. Not one person said anything. I looked back once, just before stepping out the door, and saw my father lift his whiskey glass and start talking again like nothing happened. I didn't cry in the car. I didn't speak until I buckled them in and started driving. I told them we were going somewhere better. We got milkshakes and drove around town looking at Christmas lights. I told them we'd have our own holiday. One that felt like home. But while they drank their milkshakes in the back seat, I sat there with my hands on the wheel, teeth clenched. That moment in his house kept playing over and over. I couldn't stop thinking about it. My father, the same man who smiled for photos with my kids last year, who told his friends he was proud of his grandbabies, had looked me in the eye and pretended they didn't belong. And I knew why. Because my kids don't look like the rest of the family. Because I didn't marry the man he wanted me to. Because my life didn't follow the script he'd written for me. He never accepted that I raised them on my own. He never once came to a school play or a birthday party. But every holiday he expected me to show up, smile, pretend everything was fine and keep the peace. For years I did. I bit my tongue. I smiled for the sake of my siblings. I played the good daughter. But this was different. You don't humiliate someone's children and expect to go back to normal. He thought I'd keep my mouth shut. Like always. He thought I wouldn't want to make drama. But he forgot one thing. I wasn't afraid of the truth anymore. Because just 3 days before that party he'd called me late at night. Drunk as usual. He left a voicemail, didn't even realize he was being recorded, and in it he said some things I hadn't told anyone. Things about my kids. About how they were just her mess, and how they don't count as real family. He said she made her bed with that lowlife, let her lie in it. Don't drag the rest of us into it. I'd saved that voicemail. I'd replayed it a few times alone, trying to make sense of how someone could sound so calm while saying something so vicious. And after what he said at the door in front of everyone, I sent it out. I forwarded it to my brother, to my sister, to 2 aunts, and even to my cousin Rachel, who always acted like she was Team Dad. I didn't say anything. Just sent the file and let it speak for itself. Then I turned off my phone, put on a movie, and curled up with my kids under a blanket while snow started falling outside. That was when things started to shift. Because exactly 1 hour after we walked out of that house, my sister confronted him. Right there in front of everyone. And suddenly, the man who always controlled the room found himself backed into a corner. What happened next, no one saw coming. Not even me. When I turned my phone back on the next morning, it nearly froze from all the notifications. Missed calls. Voicemails. A long, rambling text from my dad, half apologizing, half justifying himself. A message from my sister that just said, "Call me." You missed it. I didn't call her right away. Instead, I played a board game with the kids and made waffles from scratch. We had Christmas music on in the background, and I swear it was the first holiday morning in years that didn't feel forced. The tension was gone. No pressure. No fake smiling. Just peace. I was curious, and I couldn't help myself. I opened my sister's voicemail first. He sounded shaken. She told me that right after we left, our dad laughed and said something like, "Well, that saved us from the usual drama." Like I'd been the one who brought it on myself. Like my kids didn't just stand there and get rejected by their own grandfather. Apparently that's when my sister had enough. She played the voicemail I sent her out loud. She didn't tell anyone what it was beforehand. Just tapped her phone, let it play. The room went dead silent. She said Dad's face dropped when he realized what it was. That sick, drunk message. His real voice saying exactly what he thought of me and my kids. It wasn't just the words. It was how casual he sounded. Like it was normal to speak that way about your daughter and grandkids. Like he didn't care who heard. Uncle Dennis walked out. Aunt Marie followed. My cousin Rachel apparently stood there, staring, speechless. Even my brother, who always took Dad's side, looked like someone had smacked him across the face. My sister said Dad tried to talk over the message. Claimed it was taken out of context. Said it was just venting, that he'd had a bad night, that he didn't mean it like that. But no one was buying it. Not this time. Because the truth wasn't new. It had just been exposed. Everyone had seen the little moments over the years. The backhanded comments. The way he dismissed me in conversations, interrupted me, ignored my kids when they talked to him. But he'd always done it with just enough subtlety to avoid blame. Now he couldn't hide behind charm or excuses. My sister said that by the end of the night the party was practically empty. People left early. Nobody wanted to toast. The gift sat unopened under the tree. And for the first time in his life my father had to sit in a quiet house and think about why. He called me 6 times after that. Left 3 voicemails. None of them said sorry. Not really. One of them said he didn't think it would hurt so much. Another one said I should have come to him directly. The last one just said, "You made your point." Oh, Dad. You made the point. Just hit play. Later that night my brother texted me. It was just one sentence: "I should have stood up for you years ago." I didn't know what to do with that. So I didn't reply. Because this wasn't about a voicemail. It wasn't about a party. This was about a man who cared more about being right than being a father. And now for the first time he was starting to lose the one thing he always took for granted. Control. What he did next was out of character. Desperate even. And it only made things worse. The next day he showed up at my house. Not a call. Not a text to ask if it was okay. He just drove over and parked in front like it was 1998 and none of this had happened. Like he could just walk up, say a few words and everything would reset. I saw him through the blinds. Standing on the porch with his coat half-zipped, holding a box wrapped in shiny red paper. It was obviously a last-minute gift. Probably something he picked up on the way, thinking a toy or two would somehow make up for what he'd said. I didn't answer the door. He knocked 3 times. Waited. Knocked again. I heard him sigh, then say my name once. Not loud, just enough that I could tell he expected me to come around. I didn't. He stood there for maybe 4 or 5 minutes, then left the box on the porch and got back in his car. He didn't drive off right away. He just sat there, engine running. I watched from behind the curtain, not moving, not blinking. I wanted to see if he'd come back. If he'd actually try. But he didn't. He drove off. Slowly. When the kids asked who it was, I told them it was no one important. I didn't want to make a scene in front of them. Not again. They'd already seen enough. Later that night, after they went to bed, I opened the box. It had 2 things inside. A model car kit, still in the store bag, and a glittery unicorn journal. Price tags on both. Not wrapped. No note. Just junk. Stuff he probably grabbed from a convenience store to say he'd done something. But it was what was under the journal that really got to me. A folded photo. One I hadn't seen in years. It was a picture of me as a kid, sitting on his shoulders at some 4th of July thing. I was probably 5. We were both smiling. My hair was in pigtails and he looked like the dad I remembered from before everything went sideways. On the back he'd written 3 words in blocky letters. Fix this. Please. Not I'm sorry. Not I was wrong. Just fix this. Like it was my job to undo what he'd broken. The next morning my sister called again. This time I picked up. She said he was spiraling. Calling people. Trying to explain. Trying to rewrite what he said on the voicemail. He'd even told Uncle Dennis that I'd misunderstood him and that he never said the kids weren't family, that he was just making a joke. A joke. I asked my sister if she laughed. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Margot, he's scared." Good. Let him be scared. Let him sit with it for once. I'd lived my whole life tiptoeing around his moods, trying not to provoke him, trying to keep things smooth for the sake of holidays and birthdays and whatever scraps of peace we could gather. And look where it got me. The truth was, part of me wanted to call him back. Not to forgive. Not yet. But to unload 20 years of things I'd swallowed just to keep him in my life. But I didn't. Because now, for the first time, people were seeing him clearly. And he was seeing what life looked like without the loyalty he'd never earned. He tried one more thing before the week was over. And that's when things got ugly. Not just desperate. Ugly. 3 days after he showed up at my house, I got a call from Aunt Marie. She never calls. She's more of a birthday text and occasional Facebook comment type. But that morning she called twice back to back. When I picked up, she didn't even say hello. Just went straight into it. Margot, what is he doing? Apparently he'd started calling relatives one by one. Not to apologize, but to warn them. That's the word she used. Warn them about me. He told her I was trying to tear the family apart. That I had doctored the voicemail. That I was going through some emotional breakdown, and that I was using my kids as weapons. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He even told one of our cousins that I'd been unstable for years, and they just hadn't seen it until now. He was losing control, and instead of facing it, he went for the only thing he knew. Smear, discredit, isolate. Classic him. I didn't even have to defend myself. Aunt Marie said the second he started talking that way, she knew he was panicking. She told me she hadn't forgotten the time he refused to come to my baby shower, or the way he always introduced me to new people as his free spirit daughter. His way of saying mistake without using the word. By the end of that day, I had more texts than I could keep up with. Cousins I hadn't heard from in months were reaching out. My sister said she was done trying to talk to him. My brother, who until then hadn't said much, sent me a message that just said, "I'm with you. 100%. And that's when he lost his grip. Because what he never understood was that all those years he spent mocking me, minimizing me, talking behind my back. People were paying attention. They just didn't know how bad it really was until now. The voicemail made it real. The party incident confirmed it. And this smear campaign? That sealed it. Even Rachel, who used to practically worship him, told him to stop calling. I heard from someone, I won't say who, that he was sitting alone at his house, calling people who weren't picking up anymore. That he stopped going into town. That he skipped church. That he told someone, I think I pushed her too far this time. No kidding. But then came the email. I opened it late at night after the kids had gone to bed. It was long. Pages. A lifetime of justification. He wrote about how hard things were when Mom died. How he didn't know how to be a father to a girl. How I was always so different and he didn't know how to connect with me. He said he resented the choices I made, that I walked away from everything we built, and he didn't know how to forgive me for that. Then he admitted something I never thought he'd say. He was jealous. Of me. Of my independence. Of the way I raised my kids without him. He said I made it look effortless and he hated how small that made him feel. Then he said this. They're your family. I was wrong. I see that now. I can't undo what I said, but I can say this. I'm ashamed. I truly am. At the end he asked me not for forgiveness but for a chance. One chance to try again. Even if I don't deserve it. It didn't make everything okay. But it was the first real thing he'd said in years. I sat there for a long time just staring at the screen. Thinking about how easily he could have avoided all of this if he'd just chosen love over pride. But he hadn't. And now he had to sit in the wreckage of what he built. I didn't reply. Not yet. Because there was still one more thing he needed to face. And this time, it wasn't coming from me. I didn't tell my kids everything. Just enough to explain why we didn't go back to Grandpa's. I kept it simple. Grown-ups sometimes say things they can't take back. We don't stop loving them, but we don't pretend nothing happened either. Ben asked me once, right after the party, did we do something wrong? I told him no. I told him some people forget how to be kind even to their own family and that it was not their fault. I thought that would be the end of it. But then a week after the email, just after New Year's, my dad called again. This time I picked up. He asked if he could come by. Said he didn't expect anything, just wanted to see the kids. He sounded different. Not pitiful, not smug, just tired. I told him I'd think about it and hung up. I spent the next 2 days going back and forth. Part of me wanted to shut the door forever. The other part, the part that remembered the man who used to read me bedtime stories, who used to pull quarters from behind my ears, wanted to believe there was something worth salvaging. Not for him. For my kids. So I said yes. He came on a Sunday afternoon. No whiskey, no fake smile, no loud entrance. He stood on my porch in a sweater I hadn't seen in years, holding nothing but his car keys. He asked if he could come in. I let him. He sat on the couch like a guest. Not like family. My kids were quiet at first. Lily clung to me. Ben just stared at him. My dad tried small talk. Said the pie we brought to the party, the one we left with, looked good. Said he was sorry he missed it. Ben didn't say anything for a while. Then out of nowhere he asked, Why didn't you want us there? It was quiet after that. My dad looked at him. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Then he looked at me like he was searching for a lifeline and found none. I did want you there, he said finally. I just forgot how to show it. Ben blinked. You said it was for family. That landed like a punch. My father actually winced. Then he nodded. I was wrong. And then he just sat there. Let it hang in the air. No excuses. No spinning it. Just those 3 words. Ben looked at me confused again, then back at him. Then shrugged and said, okay, can we have cookies now? And that was it. Kids are like that. They don't need the whole explanation. They just need to feel safe again. But me, I was still watching. Still weighing every second. After the kids ran off to the kitchen, my dad stayed seated. He didn't look up right away. He said he'd been thinking a lot. That when he saw people walking away from him at that party, people he thought would always be on his side, it finally hit him how hollow it all was. How much time he'd wasted being right instead of being decent. He told me something I'll never forget. I used to think keeping the family together meant controlling everything. But all I did was push everyone further away. I didn't say anything back. Not yet. Because words were cheap and I'd heard too many of his. But I didn't kick him out. I let him sit there, drink coffee, and watch his granddaughter put frosting on cookies like it was the most important thing in the world. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was the first time in my life I saw my father look small. And not in a way that made me pity him. In a way that made me believe maybe, just maybe, he was ready to learn how to be human again. It didn't happen all at once. That's the thing no one tells you. Forgiveness isn't one moment. It's not a hug or a coffee or an apology email. It's waking up every day and choosing not to hold the past like a knife. And some days you still want to. After that visit, he didn't push. He didn't call the next day or show up again uninvited. He sent a card the following week. Handwritten, no gifts inside, just a simple message. Thank you for letting me see them. I'll wait for whatever comes next. I left it on the counter for 3 days before I read it again. He was trying. For once, not to win, not to be the center, but to just show up. We started slow. I let him come by once a week. I watched how he interacted with my kids like a hawk. I watched for signs of sarcasm, those little jabs he used to be so good at. But they never came. Instead, he listened. He helped Lily build a Lego castle without taking over. He asked Ben about his favorite books and actually listened to the answers. But I still held back. I didn't tell him everything. I didn't share much about my life. I wasn't ready. Then spring came and the kids wanted to have a picnic in the backyard. I told them to invite whoever they wanted. They said Grandpa. I didn't hesitate. That was new. He came with a cooler full of orange sodas and a blanket older than I am. Sat on the grass with them for hours. No phone, no commentary, just there. At one point, when the kids ran inside to grab more napkins, he looked at me and said, I've had a lot of time to think. And I realized I spent most of my life being scared of not being respected. I thought control was the same thing as love. I didn't respond. He wasn't fishing for one. He added, You were the only one who stood up to me. I used to hate that. Now I think it's the best part of you. There was no excuses. No blame. Just ownership. That night, after the kids were in bed, I pulled out a photo album. One of the old ones from before things fell apart. There was a picture of me and him at my high school graduation, both of us smiling like we hadn't started becoming strangers yet. I sent it to him. No caption. A few minutes later, he replied, I remember that day. I was proud. I just didn't know how to say it without sounding soft. I texted back, Try harder next time. He responded, I will. And he has. We're not healed. Not fully. Some things still sit heavy between us like furniture you can't quite rearrange. But we're in the same room now. Talking. Laughing sometimes. He comes to the kids' school plays. He brings over books. He still messes up, but when he does, he apologizes like he means it. For the first time in my life, I'm watching him try to become the man he pretended to be for everyone else. And I don't love him because he's my father. I love him because now, finally, he's trying to earn it. We don't talk about the party anymore. Or the voicemail. Or that awful moment at the door. We don't need to. He knows what he said. And now every time he shows up, really shows up, he says something else without words. That he was wrong. And that he wants to spend whatever time he has left getting it right.